Afternoon and welcome to Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. We begin the show looking at some of the headlines from the past week. Now, when we say democracy, we say it's by the people, of the people, for the people. And when it comes to the general elections, there's usually a lot of attention on the presidential candidates, the gubernatorial candidates, House of Assembly, Senator. But the same thing cannot be said when it comes to our local government elections. And that begs the question, why don't Nigerians show up to the polls when it comes to their LGA elections, when that's actually the closest form of government to them? I know this is a question that continues to bug a lot of Nigerians, and we're going to be discussing this amongst other things. Joining me for this conversation is Justice Ojieno. He's a lawyer. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
It is my pleasure to join you, Isabella.
So, we know what's happening in Rivers State. The local government elections is happening. But before I even get into that, do you vote in your local government elections?
I do.
Did you vote in the one that was in Lagos?
I didn't.
You didn't?
In the past one.
Okay,
yes,
you didn't vote in the past one. Okay, now, we see what's happening in Rivers with the local government elections, and it begs the question, why don't people show up to the polls? Why didn't you show up to the local government elections in Lagos?
Okay, the major reason why I didn't participate in the last one was because I was not on ground on that day. So I would have, for the life of me, I will not be discouraged by the shenanigans of our politicians and all the other persons who are trying to even cut all arms and all heads and all legs just because they need to assume a political office. I don't bow to pressure. I wouldn't bow to them. So I would still have participated if I were around, but I wasn't. That's the major reason why I didn't. But as for other Nigerians, the major reasons why they do not participate in local government election is obvious. It's because they feel that they do not have a say, that their votes will not count, and whoever is going to emerge as the eventual whether chairman or ward councillor is already predetermined. And we can see that one major symbolism for me as a person was Mr. Tony Okocha. And this time I'm not just dropping names, but because he said it and he repeated it. Mr. Tony Okocha, I think 1 year, and he's presently the APC chairman, factional, arguable APC chairman in Rivers State. He was the chief of staff to Mr. Rotimi Amechi, who was the governor at the time. And he said on social media, it trended everywhere, that they write election for local government, they write local government elections in the governor's office.
They write it, they write the winners.
Yes, he said it. He said it. And when he was re-interviewed on this platform, it was also on channels, when he was re-interviewed and pushed back by Mr. Chamberlain Uso, he repeated it. And he actually said that he ought to have been rewarded as a whistleblower rather than being chastised to have said such a thing. So for them, their perception of rigging is warped. It is thwarted. It is inexplicable to the average Nigerian. And that is why when the average Nigerian knows that this is already predetermined, the politicians are recycling themselves and choosing themselves, why are you telling me to just come and participate ceremonially in a process that you have already practically decided?
So if they have this mindset that it's already been predetermined or it's written down in some governor's office, how come this same enthusiasm or this same conviction does not follow them to the bigger elections, the general elections?
Ordinarily, it does. But for the last election, voter apathy was at an all-time low because the people they just had some strange form of hope. And of course, it showed everywhere. People were traveling into the country just to come and exercise their franchise. People were traveling from various cities back to their localities just to go and exercise their franchise. So ordinarily, it does too. But this past election, the 2023 election, was just an outlier, generally, in a manner of speaking. And I pray that the enthusiasm continues into subsequent elections, because I pray that Nigerians don't say, oh, because of how past elections have gone, including the one that they had the highest hope for, that because it went all right, that they may now want to participate in future elections. I just pray that they do not resign into their they don't maintain a to your tent, O Israel attitude.
So what's the key to getting the youth, the voters, more interested in grassroots politics, the one that actually affects them? It's your local government that has the power to change certain things, like healthcare, for example. I go to the local government primary healthcare. Yeah, so that's something that affects me personally. So how come we are not as interested? What's the solution?
Okay, some of the major reasons why we are not is because of what I've highlighted earlier. But some of the solutions are what you and I are doing now. We are saying that there's something called a local government election. We can't keep having a situation where you know the name of the president, you know the name of the governor, but the name of the local government chairman or whatever the head of the title is in various places, you are aloof to that. It is all wrong, and the consequences are around and everywhere. And I also encourage civil societies, they cannot give up. And people like us, if we get platforms, we'll also keep saying it, that we cannot leave power to shenanigans. The day we leave power to shenanigans, we will keep facing the consequences. There was a philosopher that said that whether you participate in a political, it's only a fool that says he's not going to participate in politics, because your non-participation is actually a decision, and you are responsible for the prostitute, the orphan, and bad roads and bad electricity, bad hospitals and all. So it behoves on us as citizens of our country, as civic, to observe our civic responsibilities to the hilt. And one of them, in fact, one of the chief of them, is exercising your right to vote. And not just exercising the right to vote, especially because of the uniqueness of our country, we must ensure that as much as possible, we watch the voting process from the beginning to the end. Yes, there will be some shenanigans, but there are times when they can't get away with it, especially when all Nigerians or most Nigerians decide that we want this one to count. We want this particular vote to count. If they follow the process from the beginning to the end, at some point, we will beat the politicians to it.
But And this brings the question of sensitization. Do we know the candidates, for example? Do we know the importance of the local government elections or the role that the local government plays? Or do we all just think everything starts and ends on the president's table?
Okay, for me, I feel that one of the places where it becomes very difficult for Nigerians is, let's even look at the Rivers State election, local government election that just passed. The mode of bringing up the people who won the primaries, in a manner of speaking, was also almost a largesse sharing exercise. It was giving the structure, one the political structure, and one leader or two leaders deciding who and who will emerge as a leader or as the winner of each primaries. So those are some of the challenges. And when you force a fait accompli on me as a citizen, you force a particular candidate on me as a citizen, it's not a candidate of my choosing, there's no internal democracy that brought him up at all. I don't have any input into his emergence, and I know that his loyalty will eventually not be to me. Why will I even bother to come out? So that's why, as much as possible, as citizens, we must participate in political parties, because our constitution has said that without a political party, nobody can emerge as a winner of nobody can hold any political post, especially the elective ones. So because of that, Nigerian citizens must participate from the grassroots to the primary level and even to the ultimate election.
Now let's move to the security situation. It almost seems like every week, every month, there's one kidnapping or the other. I don't know if Nigerians are getting used to it, that, this is what it has become normal. And one would expect by now that heads will roll, there'll be decisive action from the government, and some of these kidnappers will be unmasked. People will know them. They'll be brought to book. But instead, it just seems like we're just having these conversations. And I really wonder, when does this change? When does this narrative of terrorism, of kidnapping come to an end? Are we safe in this country?
Ms. Abella, I also share your optimism. I'm praying that at some point it should come to an end. While growing up, we used to see it at the tail of every news bulletin that somewhere in Afghanistan, somewhere in Iraq, this thing is happening. And to us, it's anathema. It's something that we couldn't even fathom at all. But somehow, somewhere, 2008 started creeping in, until we practically have become Unfortunately, I must say, we are now desensitized to it largely. But we have to keep it back on the front burner to ensure that the fact that we are desensitized is not normal. We should not, under any guise, normalize it. We have heard the figures, and the figures are almost nothing against us. So I feel that as much as possible, under no condition should we be forced to lose our humanity, because the persons who are put in charge of the security of lives and property, pursuant to Section 14 and Section 130 of our Constitution. By 130, I'm talking about the role of the President as the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. Of course, we have Section 214 that talks about the Nigerian Police, Section 215, Nigerian Police, Section 217, the Nigerian military, and all the other accompanying agencies. They have, as far as I'm concerned, they have failed in their roles. That is why we have arrived, unfortunately, here, and it looks like it's not getting better. As a person, too, at some point, I was affected, even though not directly. My own uncle, too, was a victim of kidnapping in Nigeria, so it hit home. I understand it when I say it. So as much as possible, the people that are in charge of leading this country should not now leave themselves. We should not exclusively, because what Leonard, my ancestor-in-law, Michael Zekumen, said at the just concluded NBA conference is that the security that we have now is not security for the Nigerian people, it's security for the government. So it's all shades of that. He's to a large extent right, because if we even check the policing, what's the fraction of the police to the average Nigerian compared to the horde of police officers that we see that follow state functionaries? So these are some of the things that we must relook into. If we have to recruit more, let's recruit more. And we can't keep having a situation where an IG of police, one of the first announcements a new IG of police makes in this country is that they are withdrawing police officers that are guarding all PDPs. They give the directive, and if the next IGP of police comes in and gives the same directive, it shows to me that the former directive that was given by the SY IG was not observed at all. So these are some of the things that we have to look into. We must commit the political will to it. We must commit the resources to it in order for Nigerians to be the beneficiaries of the services that they elected the leaders for.
And some people see kidnapping as a business. I mean, you shared something that hit home, and a lot of times it's kidnapping for ransom. I mean, in some cases it's to destabilize the community and to destabilize the government, is to put fear in the people, like what we've seen in Zamfara. But now let's look at it from kidnapping for ransom. Is that now the business of the day in Nigeria, and how can this also be tackled?
Okay, for me, I think that to a large extent, I'm reluctant to say that yes, it has become a business, because when things are tough, sometimes it is the excuse that people use to go into drug peddling, and just mention all the crimes, and unfortunately, kidnapping too is gradually climbing up the list, and I feel very, very sad that is the situation as we have it. So I feel that one of the things that can majorly be done is for our security agencies to become more alive to their responsibilities and reduce the concentration on politicians. That's for the kinetic side. The non-kinetic side, we also have the intelligence-driven protection. They can infiltrate some of these organizations. I'm very, very happy that I think there was reportage about 2 weeks ago that one of the Lakurawa, one of the insecurity promoting organizations in Kwara State, Ilorin, was arrested without one fire shot. So things like that, news like that too, will put us in a better place as a country. So I feel that government should be more alive to their responsibilities. Once they are more alive to their responsibilities, it will naturally diminish. And young Nigerians should always remember that we should not say life is hard is an excuse to indulge in criminality. And the long arm of the law will eventually reach them and overtake them. And karma too, it doesn't have to be the law. Somehow, nature has a way of balancing itself. It's called circle of life.
And this conversation won't be complete without even looking at sometimes when people cry wolf, whether it's in form of attention seeking. We had on a live stream of popular social media influencer, TikToker Pella, where it was announced that he had been kidnapped, and the police is saying no, they're not aware of any such thing. Now, what message does that send to the importance or the seriousness of this issue when something like that can be almost trivialized?
Oh, it's hard for me. I think it's insensitive to joke with something like that, even though comedy by its very nature, I've come to know that comedy by its very nature is sometimes intrusive and can be offensive. So I must admit that, not just in our country, but just mention it in other countries. They didn't see Donald Trump for 2 days in public. People have started tweeting, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead, and things like that. So to a large extent, freedom of expression and comedy can be very, very intrusive. But I solidly advise that persons who have been given positions of responsibility like influencers, celebrities, or any other person that has a platform where they impact a lot of lives or impact a lot of
I mean, this is a live stream that is viewed globally. So this is not just in your room, 10 people watching it. It's people forming opinions about the safety of Nigeria.
And they are scared. And it's affecting them.
And then how can this be deterred? What does the law say? Like, can you just cry wolf and say, oh, I'm being kidnapped on a live stream, and then everybody says, oh, we're just joking, and it's all vibes and laughter?
I think it's greatly irresponsible. Why I'm trying to draw a fine, why I'm trying to walk a tightrope here is because there's a difference between if you are joking about something and if you actually arrange a false kidnap. The arrangement of false kidnap is a criminal offense. And of course, kidnapping by itself, depending on what state in Nigeria, because kidnapping largely is a state offense, just like murder. It's not a federal offense, it's a state offense. So once a person is kidnapped, it now depends on the state. For some states, if a person dies in detention, then the person will get a death sentence. The defendant will most likely get a death sentence. But if a person does not die in detention and the person is eventually released, for some states, it's still a death sentence, while in some other states, like Lagos State, it is life imprisonment. But if a person arranges for his own kidnap, arranges a actual fake kidnap, then what the law says is that the person, especially in Lagos, the person will suffer a 15-year imprisonment. And I commend you to a live example of what happened in 2017 in a road not too far from here, CMD Road. The king of the Baale of Shangisha was arranged for his own kidnap, maybe because he said he was looking for resources. He wanted to blackmail the government. So what happened in that case was that he was convicted and sentenced to 15 years imprisonment.
So because he planned his own kidnap.
Because he planned his own kidnap. So
that is 15 years.
It's 15 years. But he appealed it, and at the Court of Appeal level, his sentence was commuted to 12, was reduced to 12 years.
But what does that say to the young people who are saying, you know what, I can plan my kidnap, make 10 billion, and then I just do 12 months.
No, it's 12 years.
12 years. But it can be reduced, it can be committed. That's what you just said.
Yeah, it can be reduced by an appellate court if they feel that it is excessive.
So what can the government do to sensitize people to say, look, if you plan your own kidnap, you will make the money, but you are going to
It's happening every day, actually, Isabella. I'm a lawyer, so it's something I see. Some of them make reportage, and a lot of them don't make reportage. Just like a lot of crimes don't make reportage. We live in the courts. So what will happen is Nigerian government, of course, the National Orientation Agency, which to my mind they are doing a bit better than the other former National Orientation Agencies that we used to have. They can also make this a topical topic and actually canvass it and match it to the average Nigerian. Especially this is prevalent among boyfriend and girlfriend, two people.
So they just plan.
They just plan it, yes.
And then they dupe people, raise money.
It is almost, and maybe that was why Pella felt, okay, he could also do something like this. And I feel that it is irresponsible on his side. It is unethical on his side. And at some point, too, we must also now try to bring up maybe a few regulations to ensure that people who have platforms like that, celebrities, influencers, they don't abuse those privileges. They don't cross into the line of practically endangering people. But if it is that he actually lied to the police officers or lied to law enforcement that he was actually kidnapped, then we know that we already know one of the consequences. And some other consequences too that comes with lying to law enforcement and things like that. And also perjury at some point along the line. So they can be held liable for those.
And my final question will be to those brazen people who don't feel any form of fear. They go on live, they go on social media, they're displaying bundles of money as their bounty from the proceeds from kidnapping. What's the government doing? Can they track them? Can they arrest them? Can they bring them to book? Because they are encouraging it by showing, look, I've made all this money from kidnapping, nothing can happen to me.
Okay, for me, I think that is even very stupid. If you are a criminal, you are supposed to be discreet. You are supposed to be secretive. So they are practically adding to the exhibits that will be used against them in court. And unfortunately,
but is the government going after them?
It's a shame. That's why I'm hoping, I'm praying like you, that our law enforcement are actually alive to their responsibilities. Because when they are alive to their responsibilities, these people will not dare it. I saw a situation like that too with the FBI in the US, and in a few moments, the person was swooped upon. I pray and hope that Nigerian government too and law enforcement generally will be alive to their responsibilities and ensure that they make these people shows of shame and examples to discourage deterrence. Thank you very much for the loan of that word.
Amen. We can say amen to that prayer. Thank you very much,
You're
Justice
welcome.
Ejedo, for your contributions
It's
on
my
Rubbin
pleasure.
Minds.
It's my pleasure. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. We'll go on a quick break on Rubbin Minds. Please don't go anywhere. The show returns. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now, Nigeria leads the way when it comes to education, and not in the way you're thinking, in a negative way, with over 10 million out-of-school children, the highest in the world. And it breaks my heart going down the road and seeing children who are meant to be in school, hawking, begging, and just getting up to so much mischief. And this crisis, a silent one, has continued to persist. And it begs the question, what is the government doing? What is the solution? How can we get more children in school? There's the whole talk about free education, but why are children still out on the streets? To discuss this, I have with me Precious Ifeanyichukwu, a girls global coach. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we also have a social worker, Olushola Tejosho. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting our invitation, and we'll go right into the conversation on this silent crisis. I know probably when you were coming here over the week, you see these children out on the streets, begging, hawking, and it's become common. And why has this persisted? Why are the numbers so high? And I'll start with you, Precious.
Okay, I think it's first a problem of negligence. We have played norm to these things. So from there, we normalized it. So from just seeing it as, oh, it's normal, we're now numb. We see children on the streets hawking. We see children sleeping under the bridges. And we just see it as a normal thing. And if, as it is continuing, we are having a generation that is disconnected from the entire country. They don't know what's going on. Their voices don't matter. You don't find them in any statistics. They are just outside. And it's majorly a problem of negligence, both on the part of the country, our leaders, and on the part of families, because they're also coming from families. We do not just have children who are on the streets. We also have children who are hawking, who are doing menial jobs when they are supposed to be in schools. So we have some parents who are neglecting their major responsibility, which is to take care of the kids. And we also have the country, our government, our leaders, neglect these things as if they don't matter. But the problem is, it will matter very soon.
Definitely, our children are the future of this country, and if we want a better Nigeria, we need to invest in the future.
Yeah.
I'll move to you, Olushola. Nigerians have become a bit cold to this reality, to this silent crisis, and it's because you look on the streets and every day it's a different child, but there are stories. These people matter. They come from a home. Can you share a story of maybe a boy or a girl that you've encountered on the street, someone that has gone through this whole out-of-school experience?
Well, it's a complicated discourse, but the painful reality is that we as a people and as government, we need to do more about it. By the virtue of what I do, being a social worker, and majorly I work with people who are having issues with substance use. I've come across a whole lot of them, and I've seen several of them who were out-of-school children. They ended up being on the street. And because of that, they became homeless. And because of that, they were introduced to substance use. And some of them eventually will go into other terrible vices. like courtesan, like other things like that. So these are the problems that we are having in society. And back to your question, yes, I've seen about not less than 5 to 10 of them who were practically living on the street. They were away from their parents, they didn't look out for them, and they ended up just being on the street at the Bar Beach, the old Bar Beach then. And they spent quite a number of years then before they were able to be brought into our rehab center then by an NGO, and they were able to cater for them, try to rehab them, and eventually few of them they are doing well today. So we have a lot of them, and even until now, the problem is not going down, but rather it's increasing, because 10 million is not so much, it's not cheap.
No, 10 million is more than the population of some countries, exactly. And imagine that resource just
being lost.
Yes, being lost, literally.
That's about more than the whole population of Togo. Yes.
You know, the government says education is free, and yet children are not in schools. They even go a step further to say, oh, you know what, children are not in school because we're not feeding them, and they've done all these school feeding programs to ensure children are in school. There's universal basic education. But why aren't these children attending classes?
Well, a lot of those are government propaganda. They are just political stimulations. They do that sometimes to gain attention of the public. But away from that, on the other hand, some of those are also actually real policies that have been put in place, decisions that the government has made, but they're not followed up on. There is no accountability. There is no follow-up system. There is no one making sure that these things are done. And most times, even when they get started, when we actually start doing them, we stop on the way, because one government goes and then another comes and they trust the entire policies of the previous. So you see the situation where I know of states where public schools are being sold to private individuals and they do what they want with it. So you see some children who were there, who were, you know, their parents were able to pay the little stipend and, you know, they could get educated. They're lost out. They're the ones losing out because their parents may not be able to afford the education going forward. So the problem is that yes, there are policies and there are things that government is actually doing to make sure that our children are educated. You know, we don't have them on the streets, but we're not doing enough. Sadly so. We're not doing enough, and we actually need to do more. We need to not just create those policies, those programs. We also need to follow up on them and make sure that teachers are also well paid. You know, schools are well equipped. Our children are going to school. I remember there was a particular state governor back in the years in Abia State who would literally like walk on the street. If you are on the streets in the morning, he's going to flog you. And if you are late, he's going to flog you. If a child is on the street and probably they're poor or something, he's going to make sure that that child goes back to school. I mean, that might be an extreme, you know, exercise, but we need to like take more responsibility to ensure that our children, we're not just saying we're educating them, we're providing all of that, we're also ensuring that it is actually done.
And I'll move to you, Olushola. What about parents who use their children to make money? So they have a mandate. Whether it's to go and beg for alms, or whether it's to hawk, or whether it's to go around with someone who is blind and seek favors, or to go and clean the windscreens of cars. I mean, there are parents who have employed their children to make money, and that's why they can't go to school. Have you encountered such? What can the government do, and how can we hold these parents responsible?
Well, it is very, very dicey, but unfortunately, a lot still needs to be done about these out-of-school children. Now, like my colleague here rightly said, a lot of propaganda out there. But unfortunately for us, there is a policy in place, the UBEC policy, a fantastic policy, but implementation is just a zero. By the virtue of UBEC, UBEC is a Universal Basic Education Commission. Ideally, this is a platform that's ordinarily if well implemented. No child should be out of school, no child. Because the funding for UBEC is so fantastic that it's automated, whereby it comes from CFR, Consolidated Revenue Fund, CRF, and that's 2% of whatever that comes to the consolidated account. That is what goes to UBEC automatically. And it's being managed by the commission. So every state ought to automatically have access to it. But they must do that with counterfeit fund. That is, they have their own part to also play before they can access the fund. But by the time you now look at the implementation process, from HUBEC to SUPERB to LGA, there's a gap. So this gap is what we are actually seeing outside. The gap that they are unable to close is the aftermath of what you are all seeing on the street now, whereby you see children on the street and everywhere. And the reason why we have influx of these children on the street now is because of, number one, poverty. That is the greatest one. In fact, that is the chunk of the problem. We have other factors, other drivers there, but poverty is a very serious one. And when you have poverty, that is why you push a lot of parents to begin to push their children outside so that they can be able to meet up with their financial demand. Do you understand? So poverty is one. Then number two, as a society, we have failed. And what do I mean? When we were growing up, if a child is not in school or working on the street during school hour, community will rally around and ask questions. But now, we just assume it doesn't concern me. And that is the problem. And this thing is just increasing every day. The progress is progressive in nature now. So we have failed. Then another reason why it looks as if it's so common now is because of even government capacity to be able to properly enforce some of this policy they are also putting in place. If it's a crime, I think it should be a crime for a parent not to send a child to school, but nothing is really being done on the part of the government.
Yeah, I know in other climes abroad, if you don't send your children to school, social services
will come after you.
Will come after you, and they will take the child from you. So you don't even have access to the child to send them out to make money. And, very important points have been raised. But when we look at the effects, these children are on the streets. They are exposed to all sorts of vices. Absolutely. They are getting up to a lot of mischief. And as a result, like you said, they are lost. But 10 years down the line, like what you said earlier, we're going to pay for it because these people will grow up and become, they're going to be a menace to society. And why aren't we paying attention to that? What should we be doing? How should government be treating this silent crisis?
Yeah, you already said that. They are the children out on the streets, they are taking bombs. And if we are not careful, they will detonate. And we don't want to know what the outcome can look like. We already see that happening, right? Cases like kidnapping, drug abuse, armed robbery. So if you think you're safe in your home, you're not, because that child on the street will get hungry, will need things, and they'll find a way to get them. So we actually need to begin to pay attention to this thing as a society. And like he said, we need to stop neglecting them and start thinking, what can we do? And like you already mentioned, the government, we can come in a lot more. We can be more responsible. We can look at them. I mean, they could be on the street as a result of poverty, but we can change the narrative. They can stay there for a day, 2 days, 1 week, but we can decide that, okay, let's do something. What are the programs? What are the policies we're going to put in place? What are the activities? How do we ensure that we take them out of the street, not just take them out, engage them meaningfully so that they become, meaningful part of the society. They're doing something with their lives. And how do they say that? And a lazy person is a devil's workshop. So when you're doing nothing, devil starts to, give you ideas and suggestions of what to do. How about trying drugs? How about? So before you know that, a 10-year-old is getting into things that a 50-year-old cannot think of. So we need to begin to do that. And this is also a call to, the government to begin to do something about our out-of-school children. They can't help themselves. So we need to help them. They are our responsibility. And if we continue to neglect them, they will detonate because that's a time bomb. And it's not going to help. It's not going to be, it won't be a very funny sight.
Yeah. I think it's becoming very obvious now, because once you neglect the problem, 5 years, 10 years down the line, these are the people who are engaged in all sorts of vices. I'll move to you. In your own experience, how can the government support the work of NGOs, of CSOs? How can the government ensure that there are people who need children, who want to adopt? In other climes, there's a foster care system. There's the child protection services. Do we have that in Nigeria? Do we have such measures?
Okay, well, government can come in different ways, but the problem is overwhelming even for government, especially when you consider migration, rural urban migration. People migrate to the cities every day. They come in their numbers. Cities like Lagos, like Kano, like Port Harcourt, people migrate from the rural area every day. And when they migrate, they come with the intention of trying to look for better opportunities. But no planning, no proper planning. There's shortage of housing, no good job. Sometimes when they come, they discover that their capacity to be able to meet up with the demand of the city is not actually there for them. And in that note, they just push those children outside. So even no matter the policy the government is trying to make, as long as there's a gap, wide gap, between what's happening in the rural and urban, the migration will continue. And the more we have the migration, then the more we continue to have this kind of problem. Do you understand? That is one. Then two, government also need to strengthen our policy. They must back it up with stringent rules and conditions to ensure that whatever policy they put in place, it's very easy to make any policy and just leave it on the paper.
That they have to be enforced. Yes,
and
they have to enforce it.
That is true. Then lastly, which is also very, very important, like you said, yes, we have foster parents outside. We also have it here. At this Lagos State, to an extent, have very, very good, robust legislation, especially when it comes to the issue of adoption, orphanages, and the likes. So I think other states just try to take a cue from what Lagos State is doing in that area, so that they can look at how they can be able to assist people in that area.
Sadly, we're out of time. Thank you very much, Olushola Tejosho and Precious Ifeanyi Chukwu, for your contributions on Rubbin Minds.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
And we hope that the government will step up to addressing this silent crisis of street children and out-of-school children. The show will return after this quick break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now, words like design, innovation, creativity, tech, entrepreneurship, they're all buzzwords. And we've seen people go to university, study one thing, come out and they do something totally opposite. And we are seeing the knowledge economy, we're seeing a content creation economy, a tech-enabled economy, and creative hubs allow for that co-creation to happen, allow for the innovation to happen. But why don't we have as many creative hubs? How can we get to a point where in this society we have creative hubs fully harnessed for their contributions? Joining me for this conversation is a creative entrepreneur in the person of Rex Moses. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you. Thank you for having me at Rubbin Minds.
Thank you for honoring our invitation. Now, we've seen the power of creative hubs, and we've seen so many innovations come out of it, people building careers, generating income in millions of dollars for the Nigerian economy. And it begs the question, why do we have so few of them if they have such strong powers?
I think because of we haven't started seeing it as a big deal, right? Our policymakers, our government are still seeing crude oil, right, as the main thing, rather than creativity is the new currency, right? So because of our policymakers, our government haven't started looking the other way, they are, fully, and then they have been mainly focusing on oil, rather than looking, different areas or different sector. That is why we still have few creative hubs in the country.
So a lot of times we're always expecting government to take the lead on these things. But can we look at some other aspects of society? Like, let's look at education, for example. How many schools, how many universities, how many institutions are looking at having a hub where you can be many things at once? Just because you're a doctor does not mean you can't be a singer or a content creator or a cook or a chef or an artist.
Well, as you know, our education system, our universities, they are still theory-based. They are not practical. And that is where creative hubs comes in, right? Because creative hubs give that room, for real practical, for young creatives to harness their skills, right? I'll tell you something. A few months ago, we went around some tertiary institutions, discussing with them, right? Even if it's to have some creative courses, maybe we start it as diploma or as selective programs. And I can tell you for a fact that out of close to about 10, it is one private university that even accepted that idea, because they are still looking at, maybe they are still looking like content creation. What is that? What is music or what is movie? Maybe because of the society that, we are. So many of these schools are not even ready or willing to accept that idea. You have rightly said it. We have lawyers that are full-time musicians. We have someone like Lai
Faz
Wasabi.
the bad guy.
Faz the bad guy. We have Lai Wasabi that is a full-time content creator. And I tell you for a fact, the creative industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry that we should not take lightly, or we shouldn't take for granted.
One would imagine that seeing those names, seeing
Yes.
the actual figures, seeing how well our tech firms, seeing how
Yes.
well our creative entrepreneurs are doing, that the government will pay more attention. What else do you have to do to make this like a front burner issue? Because government is always saying they're looking for investment, they're looking for money. If you are making plenty money in the creative industry, that's opportunity for tax, that's opportunity for investment. So what do we need to do to make this a front burner issue?
First and first, you ask yourself, how many policymakers are truly interested in our creative sector, right? So let's say, for instance, we have someone like Faz or someone like Bona or Lai Wasabi, and those are, they are in the position of our policymakers, right? They'll be able to make the right policies because they know how important creative industry is for a nation. So I believe we need to start having a situation whereby we are having some of our big names get into politics.
So, I can't help but think of the Honorable Minister Bosun Tijani.
Yes,
he is
trying,
a product
yes.
from the creative economy.
Yes.
In your estimation, has he
Yes.
done enough to make sure that this becomes a mainstream thing?
Well, to be fair, just like as I mentioned, because he has been in the tech, he has been in the creative industry, right? He's pushing right. So, in my judgment, I would say Bosun has really tried, and I will give him a pass mark. For some of the moves that he has been making, I will give him a pass mark. It comes down to the what I just said.
If you're saying you're giving him a pass mark, one
Yes.
would think that there should be collaboration.
Yes,
His
truly.
ministry alone can't be doing everything.
True.
If we want education, we want tertiary institutions to make sure that they have creative hubs, then where is that that collaboration? Where is it happening?
Yeah, that collaboration isn't there yet.
We have Federal Ministry of Tourism,
Yes.
Arts and Culture and the Creative Economy. We have communications.
Yes.
We have education. And we can see the power of these hubs. So
Yes.
why aren't we getting our act right?
Firstly, right, I would not say that they are not seeing all of these things because, for instance, we are exporting our music, right, and our music is global. Our movies, we're exporting it, and then we are doing awesomely well, right? I believe there is no better time for us to call on bigger and better collaboration than now, right? Because if we sleep on the creative industry, it will suffer, especially a nation with high numbers of youth population and with, of course, high rate of youth unemployment. So I don't think there's a better time for us to, drum calls, for the policymakers, for the government, for different ministries, right, for us to collaborate and then push the creative industry better than now.
If the government are sleeping on their responsibilities and not rising to the occasion, then where does the private sector step in? Like, what can we be doing? If government's not going to take the lead, then how can private sector say, look, these creative hubs, imagine having a creative hub in all 774 local government areas. Look at what it will do for youth employment. Look at what it will do for bringing down the rates of crime.
Now, thank you. So for the creative industry, regarding the private sectors, I think what they can do, private companies, different areas they can actually even key into this is, imagine an organization saying, okay, let me collaborate with this creative hub. We will take your best 3 cinematographers and then retain them. We will work with your best 3 fashion designers, right? To create some unique fashion piece and then export them. I think those are the areas that private sectors can come in. We are also ready to fund your best 10 students in your creative hub. We are ready to assist with tools, right? Because the creative hub is still very few in this country, and we ought to be doing more. We ought to be doing better. So in terms of assisting with funding, with tools, and of course, collaborating in different projects, those are the areas that private sectors can come in, to key in, to collaborate with creative hubs in Africa.
And how can these organizations taking the lead or looking to be a part of the solution, what help can they get from the government? If government is not going to get it with policies,
yes,
then what can they be doing to ensure that those who want to do the work, or who have already started by creating these hubs, are encouraged to do more?
Fantastic. Grant, right? Government can assist with creative hubs with grant, right? It takes them to another level. It helps with sustainability. Government can also assist with tools, with equipment, cameras, sewing machines, right? Studio equipment. Government can also help in those areas. Space, for infrastructure. Government can say, oh, this creative hub, we love what people are doing. For the next 20 years, we are giving this space for you to use, for free, to support your movement. Government can help in those areas as well. And of course, better policy. We need better policies for our creative industry to help these creative hubs.
Because I don't know if you're watching the show, but earlier on we're discussing the silent crisis of children on the streets.
Yes.
And abroad, you see community centers where these children can go and pick up a skill. Now,
yes,
a creative hub can be that opportunity. The child might not go to a 9-to-5 school,
yes,
but has a program that they are doing, skills
yes,
acquisition, and they're able to contribute their quota to society instead of being a menace.
You have hit the nail on the head. Weeks back, we went around some communities, Agboi local government, some places in Koshofe, right? We went around some areas in Agege, right, to take some numbers and do more of like an awareness. And I tell you for a fact, we have so many talents wasting away on the street. In fact, that was one of the things that pushed us, for instance, in my own organization, for us to create a particular project called Slum to Screen, where we are taking people from the street, train them in cinematography, photography, music production, fashion designing. And we are not even just leaving it at that, right? We are taking it for them to even create their own fashion piece and then create their own short films project, because talents are wasting in the street.
And these are projects that the government can certainly scale through their support. Thank you very much, Rex Moses, for being our guest on Rubbin Minds. Yeah. And we hope that the government will heed the calls and invest in the creative economy, and there will be more collaborations between the different ministries to tackle this problem of youth unemployment, but to also ensure that Nigerians are gainfully employed and are making the most of their situations. It's been my pleasure hosting. My name is Isabella Adediji. You can follow the conversation online using the hashtag Rubbin Minds. Good afternoon. See you next time.